All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to dive into something that you're super curious about, Argentine ants, right here
Yeah.
in San Diego.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Ants. Really? But trust me, there's a lot more to these tiny creatures than meets the eye,
Oh, absolutely.
especially when it comes to their impact on our local ecosystems.
Yeah.
Our main source today is a pest control company's website. But don't worry, we're not here to sell you anything.
Right.
We're going to go beyond the sales pitch and really dig into the fascinating ecological story here. And of course, I've got our expert here to help us connect the dots.
Well, it's great to be back. And yeah, I'm really excited to delve into this, especially considering how much you want to understand how things work in the natural world.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by it. And this is one of those things, you see them all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't really think about them.
Right.
And so let's start with the basics, right?
Sure.
What exactly are Argentine ants? What do they look like? The website describes them as tiny,
Yeah.
only about an eighth of an inch long, and light to dark brown.
Right. Very nondescript.
They sound pretty unassuming.
Yeah. They blend in, that's for sure.
But there's one interesting detail. They lack stingers.
Yeah, and that's a really key detail because it kind of reveals their whole strategy, which is not about attacking humans at all.
Oh, interesting.
They're all about outcompeting other ants. So they're playing a totally different game than.
So it's like ant versus ant, not ant versus human.
Exactly, exactly.
Wow. Okay, so now I'm picturing this like tiny ant turf war happening under our feet all the time.
All the time, yeah.
The site also mentions their segmented antenna.
Yeah.
What's up with that? That can't just be a fashion statement, right?
No, no, not at all. Those antennas are incredibly sensitive and they help them to navigate and communicate. So they're like little sensory powerhouses, basically.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Okay, so speaking of power, these ants seem to have a lot of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The source describes them as forming massive supercolonies,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes with millions of individuals.
Yeah.
What makes them so successful at dominating?
Well, you can almost imagine a team where everyone's perfectly coordinated and working towards the same goal, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what a super colony is. They operate like one giant unit,
Wow.
which makes them so incredibly efficient at foraging and exploiting resources.
I see. So it's like strength in numbers taken to a whole new level.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that's where the problems start, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this source cites research from UC San Diego highlighting how Argentine ants outcompete native ant species.
Hmm.
So what are the consequences of this ecological takeover?
Well, think of it this way. Native ants, they're really the foundation of a lot of different food webs.
Okay.
They're involved in seed dispersal, they aerate the soil, they even help with pest control.
Oh, wow.
So when these Argentine ants muscle in and start to displace those native ants, it's kind of like pulling a Jenga block out from the bottom of the tower, right?
Yeah.
It can destabilize the whole structure.
So it's not just about, like we said, ant versus ant.
Yeah,
It's about the ripple effect on the entire ecosystem.
exactly.
And I know you're really interested in the local fauna.
Mhm.
You'll appreciate this. The source specifically points to the threat these ants pose to the coast horned lizard, which relies on native ants as a food source.
It's true, and that's a species that's already facing a lot of challenges, from habitat loss and other things.
Yeah.
So the decline of its main food source is just adding another layer of pressure.
Oh, wow.
And it really highlights how interconnected everything is in these ecosystems.
Yeah, it's almost like this chain reaction.
Yeah.
Fewer native ants means fewer coast horned lizards.
Hmm.
And then that could impact other parts of the ecosystem too, right?
Absolutely. And the force even mentions how these Argentine ants, they prey on bee larvae as well, which can further disrupt pollination and, have an impact on plant diversity. So it's a pretty stark reminder that even seemingly small changes can have a huge impact on the environment.
So how would we even know, like if we have an Argentine ant infestation?
Hmm.
Are there signs?
Yeah, there are definitely some telltale signs.
The source mentions a few. What should we be on the lookout for?
Well, I think the first thing is to think about what ants need, right?
Yeah.
They need food and water.
Right.
So if you start seeing these long, organized trails of ants along sidewalks or walls, especially if they're leading towards your home, that's kind of a red flag.
Okay, that makes sense. So, and what about inside the house? I'm guessing the kitchen is like prime real estate for them.
You got it. They're attracted to any kind of food scraps, spills, anything like that. So keep an eye out for them in kitchens and bathrooms, especially around sinks and drains. And of course, don't forget about moist areas outdoors, like near plants and gardens.
Right, right. Okay, so it sounds like, we've got to be really vigilant,
Yeah.
pay attention to what's happening in our own backyards.
Absolutely. It's kind of crazy how they've adapted.
Yeah, it's like they've figured out how to thrive in our world better than some of the native species.
Right, and they're not slowing down.
So that makes me wonder, is there anything we can do to manage these populations? Like, are we just stuck with them?
Well, we're not totally powerless.
Okay, yeah.
The website does mention some DIY control methods.
Okay, what are some practical steps we can take?
Well, prevention is always the best strategy, right?
Yeah.
And the website really emphasizes the importance of sealing any cracks or openings in your home.
Okay.
Think of it like closing the door on those unwanted guests.
Right, makes sense. And I'm guessing proper food storage is key too, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're not picky eaters.
No, I wouldn't imagine so.
So keeping your food in airtight containers, cleaning up spills quickly, all that stuff can really make a big difference.
So it's like basic cleanliness, but on an ant scale level of detail.
Exactly.
Yeah. The source also mentions sugar-based ant baits. How do those work?
Well, they basically exploit the ants' love for all things sweet, right? Remember those super sensitive antennae we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, they're drawn to sugary substances. So the bait acts like a trap, basically. It lures them in and,
Oh, that's clever.
yeah,
So we're using their biology against them.
exactly.
What if those DIY methods aren't enough?
Well, the source also suggests some natural repellents. Things like peppermint oils, citrus peels.
Oh,
Those strong scents can actually disrupt their scent trails, making it harder for them to navigate. It's kind of like throwing them off the scent.
yeah, yeah. So it's all about making our homes less appealing to these tiny invaders.
Right.
But the site does acknowledge that sometimes professional help is necessary.
Definitely. If you're seeing just overwhelming numbers of ants, or if they're persistently getting into your food, it's probably worth consulting with a pest control specialist.
Yeah.
They can assess the situation and recommend, the most effective solutions.
It's like calling in reinforcements for the ant war.
Exactly, yeah.
So we've covered identification, their
Yeah.
impact on the ecosystem, even some ways to manage them.
Mm-hmm.
But zooming out a bit, what's the bigger picture here?
Yeah.
Why should we even care about a few ants?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Okay.
The Argentine ant invasion is really a case study in invasive species and their impact on biodiversity.
Right.
Invasive species can come in and disrupt that delicate balance of an ecosystem, and that can lead to the decline of native plants and animals.
It's like that domino effect we were talking about.
Exactly.
And I imagine human actions play a role in this whole scenario, right?
Oh, absolutely. Global trade and travel have inadvertently helped these ants spread way beyond their native South America.
Oh, wow.
And then our urban environments with all the abundance of resources and the lack of natural predators, it's like we've created the perfect conditions for them to thrive.
It's almost like we rolled out the red carpet for them without even realizing it.
Yeah.
But that brings up another question. What does the future hold? Are we doomed to live in a world dominated by Argentine ants?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of does feel like a sci-fi movie sometimes,
Yeah.
these tiny invaders taking over. But I'm also hopeful, knowing that we are learning more about them and figuring out ways to coexist in a way that protects our native species.
That's the key, really. It's not necessarily about, eradicating them altogether,
Yeah.
but finding ways to manage their populations and minimize their impact. And, knowledge is our most powerful tool in that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not a hopeless situation,
No, not at all.
but it does require us to be more aware and proactive.
Right. And even small changes in our habits can make a difference. The source mentions things like choosing native plants for your garden.
Oh, okay.
That can really support native ant populations.
And being careful about not transporting firewood, because that can unintentionally spread these ants to new areas.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about recognizing that we're part of this delicate ecosystem and our actions have consequences.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the complexity of the natural world and the role that we play in it.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is.
Even something as seemingly mundane as an ant can just open up this whole world of, ecological insights.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question to ponder.
Okay.
Knowing what you now know about Argentine ants and their impact, What steps can you take, even small ones, to be a better steward of your local environment? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, keep exploring, keep asking questions.
Hmm.
And remember that even the smallest actions can contribute to a healthier, more balanced ecosystem.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning and keep diving deeper.